Um, Marianne asked, do you think we will ever know the truth about who President Obama really is? That's followed right behind by KCZ Lind, Kizlind, who says that I believe Dinesh D'Souza gave us a great look into who Obama is and what his plans are in 2016 Obama's America. Yeah, so I agree with the answer, actually, Marianne. I feel like I know the truth about who Barack Obama is. There are some things in there I'd like to know that I don't know. Uh, Look, I think the birth certificate, the new one, the long format birth certificate, is bogus. I think it's phony. I don't think it's real. But here's my problem. I don't see any evidence that he was born anywhere else. So it's one of those absence of evidence does not equal evidence of absence kind of thing. I think that the birth certificate they trotted out for us is fake because they didn't have it or they couldn't find it or whatever. But looking at the history of Barack Obama and his mom, Stanley and Dunham, and Barack Obama Sr. and all that other stuff, it seems likely that they moved from Mercer Island, which was a known, Mercer Island high school was called Little Red Schoolhouse. They moved to Hawaii because mixed race marriages and mixed race children were more accepted in Hawaii than anywhere else in the United States. The connection between Obama's grandfather, that would be his mom's father, and Barack Obama Sr. seems pretty good. And frankly, that story is so, even the stuff they admit to is so awful that it just seems to have the truth about it. I think that's probably what happened. I think she went to Hawaii, got pregnant as a form of protest, just to protest, because it was it was just it. It was a form of protest for her. You look at Stanley Ann Dunham's career, her life is just a series of protests against the establishment. Her father, Barack Obama's grandfather, is a strange man, and his relationship with Frank Marshall Davis and everything else, very odd, very strange. But I don't have any evidence he was born in Kenya. I don't have any evidence he was born in Canada. So I live in both those worlds. I think the birth certificate is probably fake. I think he was probably born in Hawaii. Maybe the birth certificate is authentic. But that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is wherever he was born, he was raised by Frank Marshall Davis, who is a known communist. Grandfather said, we need a black role model for my half-black, half-white grandson, and I choose Frank Marshall Davis. And Barack Obama says in Dreams from My Father, which I think was written by Bill Ayers, I read a very, very in-depth, compelling analysis that indicated Bill Ayers probably wrote it, and I think that's true. But nevertheless, Barack Obama approved of the story that basically said, when I was a boy, my granddad and Uncle Frank used to take us to these dives, these speakeasies, and they would drink whiskey out of glass jars, and I would sit in a room and look at cartoons on the wall which were pornographic images of Disney characters. So while your 7 or 10 or 15-year-old kid is going to Disneyland, the President of the United States is sitting in a bar illegally looking at, Mickey doing Goofy. And you've got an abandoned child, and you've got a dad who is, serial alcoholic, a serial womanizer, a bigamist, illegally a bigamist. I've seen some fairly reasonably convincing on a surface level analysis that says that Barack Obama looks nothing like Barack Obama Sr., looks nothing like him. I don't know. I'd like to know. But I know enough about this guy to know that most everything he's done is a lie. I know that his resume for 16 years said that he was born in Kenya. I don't necessarily believe he was born in Kenya. I think he wanted people to believe he was born in Kenya. I think that's the whole thing about Barry Soetoro. He always wanted to appear exotic. And so you will see, I think he got his, I think a lot of his college was done on, a lot of his college scholarships were for foreign students. I don't think there's much question about it. But on the other hand, it's nothing but questions, right? Because we don't know. So anyway, most the background on this guy. I guess the heart of the question is really, Marianne, is will people ever learn about it? And I don't know. I gave up on the press ever coming around voluntarily. And where I am now is I think the only thing that can happen now so that the American people would hear it is either the Obamacare catastrophe continues to get worse, and the bloom is off the rose. People who never questioned him before, and it wasn't just Obamacare, Syria did him enormous damage. Going to war with Syria did him enormous damage with his base. And people don't trust him anymore, and his numbers are now in the 30s. And those are the published numbers. His real numbers are probably in the 20s. So people are starting to ask questions, and his support is drifting away. It's the same thing with Bush. We saw it with Bush. And the question is going to be, and by the way, Bush's approval numbers were in the mid to low 30s when he left office because the press was bashing him. Obama's numbers are already in the mid 30s with the press propping him up as much as they possibly can. If people knew what they knew about him, he'd literally be run out of the White House with torches and pitchforks and dogs in the middle of the night. So I think the only thing that I can say, Marianne, is if the catastrophes continue to roll in and he is perceived as irredeemable, that the people in the media look at his poll numbers and realize that they are being mocked by their own readership because the public is ahead of the media in terms of their understanding what this guy is, then we may see them starting to cover this. Now we're seeing a little tiny bit of it with Benghazi, right, where the New York Times, the biggest liars in the news media today, where actual journalists are doing actual journalism showing that the New York Times basically just invented this story about Benghazi. That's a landmark when somebody's calling out the New York Times and setting the record straight. So there is a world where this is happening. And the reason I'm so excited about 2014 going forward is I think 2014 is going to be far, far, far worse for him than 2013 was. I think 2015 is going to be worse than 2014. I think 2016 is going to be worse than 2015. And maybe it's wishful thinking on my part. Maybe it is. But I am coming to a place where I am beginning to see like distant lightning on the horizon, beginning to see a world where the final 3 years of the Obama administration will be so bad for him personally and so bad for progressives in general that we will look back on it and say that the destruction that he caused was worth it to get this outcome. I know it's a bold thing to say, but I'm seeing signs that this thing is unraveling big, and that's why I hope de Blasio does all of his Sandinista reforms in a month. I want New Yorkers to wake up in February and think, what the hell happened to our city? Oh, you mean the guy you voted for? The communism you voted for? It's here. Congratulations. Go outside. Take a carriage ride around Times Square, around Central Park and think about it. Oh, you can't anymore. The horse carriages aren't there anymore. So we covered this more on Into the River, which I'll post tomorrow.